Hello, folks. My name's Kathy Ace. I'm the author of the Kate Morgan Mysteries, the Wise Inquiries Agency Mysteries, and a dark psychological thriller called The Wrong Boy. That one's set in Wales, as are the Wise Inquiries Agency Mysteries, and that's where this accent's from as well, though now I'm a Canadian. Hey, I'm listening to the Dark and Stormy Book Club podcast. Are you? If not, you know what you should do? Listen. It's great. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to episode 190 of Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today we visit with the author Robbie Bach. Enjoy!
I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
The Wilkes Insurrection by Robbie Bach. We thank Anna Saka for sending us this book and introducing us to Robbie, an elusive extremist hell-bent on destroying America, a woman of uncommon valor haunted by her tragic past, a dark web hacker confronting his conscience, a failed intelligence officer in search of redemption. Just outside Omaha, Nebraska, the relative calm at Offutt Air Base is suddenly shattered when commercial flight 209 crashes down onto its runway. From the flaming wreckage, Major Tamika Smith must try to rescue survivors and make sense of the tragedy. But this was no accident. In a time of national unrest and division, a shadowy mastermind is tearing down the United States from the inside out, moving pawns in an orchestrated plan and playing law enforcement like puppets. The deadly attacks continue, and authorities have no lead and barely any clues. Trails that start hot suddenly go cold, with thousands dying and the strikes becoming increasingly personal. Major Tamika Smith must answer a fundamental question. How far would you go to save what you love? Robbie Bach is best known for founding and leading the team that created the Xbox. Today, he's an entertaining storyteller and catalyzing voice who writes books and speaks to audiences on leadership, creativity, strategy, and civic issues. We would like to welcome Robbie Bach to the program. He has a fascinating thriller, The Wilkes Insurrection, and that comes out from Greenleaf Book Group Press. It came out October 12th. Welcome, Robbie.
Thanks for having me on. Good to talk to both of you.
Robbie, I have not had the pleasure of reading this yet. Give me a reason to read it.
Well, I think several reasons to read it. The first would just be the characters themselves. This book was written starting with characters first, even before plot. And I think the characters are well developed, and there's some really emotive characters that connected to, especially my main character, who is Tamika Smith. But there are others in the book as well that I think people connect with really well. The second reason to get connected to it is it's just a really strong, action-packed, twisty thriller, and it's set in today's time. So it is, as the subtitle says, a contemporary thriller. It has all of the action you'd expect with a thriller, with all of the twists and turns that you can imagine are taking place right now and what's going on in our country.
Wow, that does sound pretty interesting. Looking at your background, how did you go from being on the team that created Xbox to writing thrillers?
Well, there's sort of a two-step process. I worked at Microsoft for 22 years, the last 10 of which was involved in video games and entertainment. And during that time, I really discovered the importance and the power of storytelling. It turns out when you're creating a great video game, the most important thing you're doing is telling a story. Obviously, that's true in a novel. And when I left Microsoft in 2010, I started to write a book, which was nonfiction. But even in the nonfiction book, I discovered that storytelling was important. And so in 2016, when I sat down and said, okay, I want to write a second book. I don't want to write nonfiction. I want to do something that's really challenging. Writing a fiction novel was right at the top of the list. And as I developed these characters, it became clear this was going to be a thriller, which is a genre I love. So I think I've sort of transported my storytelling learning and experience in Xbox and entertainment straight into my passion for people and characters and what's going on in the country.
Did you find it difficult to put yourself in the role of a woman?
It's very interesting. When I started writing the book, I naturally, in different chapters, took the role of different characters. But I probably spend across the book 60% of my time writing from a woman's perspective, at least 60% of my time. On the one hand, that's obviously challenging. I'm obviously a male. And on the other hand, I will tell you, people who've read the book, and mostly women, tell me that my strongest writing is from a woman's point of view. I have no way to explain that to you, other than I love Tamika Smith. I think she's a powerful human character who's flawed, but yet great. I think I just get into that mode. I like writing from her perspective. So you'll have to be the judge of it yourself, but I think some of my best writing is when I'm in Tamika's head, writing from her point of view.
Unfortunately, I have not finished it. I'm about halfway through, and I can't wait to see how this all resolves in the end. It's really good. The story is very well done. It could be taken out of the headlines today.
That was going to be my question. Are some of these ripped from the headlines?
Here's the irony of this. I wrote a full and quite extensive first draft in the latter half of 2016 and a good portion of 2017. I wrote the story at that time with the idea that, hey, this is a thriller. You got to find the balance point between doing things that are really out there, that are going to really surprise people, but it still has to be reasonable enough that people think it could happen. And I thought I was pushing the boundaries. And I will tell you that as the years unfolded from 2017 to 2021, things that I wrote about in the book happened. And
You aren't the first author we've heard that. It's almost like you guys are intuitive or something.
it's very strange. I don't want to give away any of the plot, but as people read it, they'll say, oh, well, he must have known about it. No, almost all of those scenes were written in 2016, 2017. Really, the only thing that I took from the headlines is the pandemic. I didn't feel like I could write a story that actually takes place mostly in 2020 and have the pandemic just not be in the book. That seemed a little strange to me. Beyond that, the basic flow of the novel and the story was written long before many of these things could happen.
You've got the dark web hacking people and organizations, and you've got all kinds of things going on that really happened.
I'd get up in the morning and I read the headlines and I go, wow. I already wrote that chapter.
Little descendant of Nostradamus here.
I don't know. Obviously, some of it is coincidence, but I think some of it is really a function of where the country's at. There are things we would have never expected happening. And so when you're a fiction writer, you write about things that are supposed to be unexpected. Naturally, I think some of them come true.
Over this past year, we asked quite a few authors whether they were going to include the pandemic in their writings. And we got a mixed bag. Some people felt that they'd had enough of the pandemic and they were ready to move on. And then some of them felt that, how could you not put it in there?
Yeah, for me, it came down to partly I felt like the story would be lacking without it. But more importantly, given the nature of my antagonist, the pandemic was too good to be true for him. It was made to order. His mode, and this isn't giving anything away, I mean, he's an anarchist. He wants to tear down the country. The pandemic was like a gift from heaven for him. In a way, I wanted to include it just because I felt like it was necessary given what's going on in the country. But in a way, including it was something that advanced the plot, made the plot even more visceral, let's say.
Is Tamika based on a person?
The short answer is no. When I started this book, I wrote about 100 pages about 5 people. None of those people were based on anyone. They were just characters that have been wandering around in my head. Obviously, each of the characters has little elements of things that I've experienced or other people or whatever. But she is not stylized, nor are any of the main characters stylized after any particular individual. She is a biracial female in the Air Force. She serves in combat search and rescue. I don't know anybody who serves in combat search and rescue. And truthfully, I don't know any biracial females in the Air Force. Of course, her nature is a combination of characteristics of lots of different people. And what I tried to do with her and with all the characters, but certainly with Tamika, is I wanted her to be both powerful and human and to have failings all at the same time. That is what brings out her richness, and I think that's what makes her compelling as a protagonist and why a lot of people are really attracted to her.
Wonderful.
As I read the book, I find her very compelling. I'm really in awe of some of the things she can do. You did a good job of portraying a kick-ass woman.
People can't tell this. I'm white. I've had several black friends read it. And what they would say is not only do they love Tamika as a character, but they love the fact that she's not some stylized black superhero, but that in fact, she's a human living her life, facing the challenges that we all face. You know, some of those are just human challenges, and some of them are because she is biracial. And so she has to deal with both of those. It's that fundamental element of how do you write from multiple perspectives without trying to stereotype people? And hopefully I've hit the right balance there. People will be able to judge for themselves.
Well, that's good to hear, because a big pet peeve of mine is when somebody is being portrayed in the book as too much, too good at this, too good at that. And I like it when they have human flaws, because then you can connect with them, because I haven't figured out how to walk on water yet.
When I started writing this, again, because I started with the characters, it started almost more as a personal drama. And so for me, the characters' emotions, their humanness, their struggles are as important as the action and the drama and the thriller aspects of the book. And so it's what I hope makes it special for people is that it's a fabulous thriller. That's obviously the goal. But that they also say, oh, and wow, there's these people in it who I actually cared about all the way through the book. It's a hard balance to strike because thrillers just want action and people want drama. And so finding that balance was something I worked on pretty hard as I was editing the book.
Now, will this be part of a series?
Well, that's a good question. As the book rolls out and as I get a little distance from the writing and the marketing and the talking about the book, probably January, February, I'll step back and decide what I want to do. I think Tamika and some other characters have more to tell and they have more to do. So there's in my mind some ideas of what that might look like. But I think as an author, you have to be really committed. You can't say, well, I think it'd be pretty easy to write a sequel about this. That doesn't work. You have to be more deeply committed than that. I want to take some time before I commit to anything. Like I said, I love the characters and I think there's more to say there.
I have a question. Tamika is a fabulous character, but your antagonist, is he based on a real person?
Very good question.
Go on, fess up.
No, in fact, he's not. And in fact, there's actually, as you know from your reading, there's actually 2 antagonists. And there's a character named Obey bin Latif. Then there's our really bad guy, Ford Wilkes. They were the hardest characters for me to write, honestly. The reason they're the hardest characters to write is because I generally think of myself as a reasonably good person. Not perfect, with failings, all of the above, but I generally think of myself as a reasonably good person. And Obey bin Latif and Ford Wilkes are not good people. They're not based on anybody I know. And in fact, in trying to develop both characters, I tried really hard to steer away from stereotypes. Ford Wilkes, you could have thought of him as your right-wing anarchist who's slightly crazy, but the guy's technical, he's smart, he really has a discipline about him. So he's not your typical guy the FBI is trying to chase down. That's why I think they have such a hard time tracking him down and figuring him out.
I am looking forward to finishing this book probably tomorrow. We can't wait to see how this ends.
Reading through your bio, I was looking at what you're currently doing, you're working with the Boys and Girls Club organization that's near